8. Romantic rendezvous ends in robbery. During a night out gambling at the famous guitar-shaped Seminole Hard Rock Casino in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in December 2022, a wealthy local man got cozy with two scantily clad women he'd just met, likely hoping for a good ending to the night. But things took a terrible turn once the trio were behind closed doors. Footage from inside the man's residence showed the two unidentified women making themselves at home. The situation seemed innocent enough until the ladies decided to make off with the man's watch, sneakers, and guns. It's unclear exactly what transpired during the robbery, but the victim had a very high-quality surveillance system which captured clear images of the suspects' faces as they fled the scene. The robbery came just weeks after another local man's $25,000 Rolex and American Express card were stolen by two women he met at a bar earlier in the evening. He told police that he drank with the women into the early morning hours and then drove them to his home in Lauderdale by the sea. The victim kept a close eye on his drink all night, but eventually got tired and fell asleep, and when he awoke, his watch and credit card were gone. Law enforcement released footage of the suspects in both cases in hopes that members of the public would help identify the alleged thieves. But it's unclear whether any arrests have been made. 7. Sarah Richards. In December 2022, Las Vegas police responded to what initially seemed like a typical case of a young woman robbing a wealthy man at a hotel along the Strip. The victim told officers that 33-year-old Sarah Richards had repeatedly insisted on him removing his Rolex watch while they cuddled in his room because she thought it was going to cut her. He said he put the $12,000 watch beneath his pillow and then drank wine at Richards' urging. At some point during the evening, the man noticed that the watch was missing. Richards allegedly began to panic and left the room, prompting the victim to become suspicious and follow her down to the lobby. Police eventually found the watch hidden in Richards' privates, and she was charged with grand larceny as well as administering a drug to aid in the commission of a felony. Just months earlier, she'd been accused of stealing another man's watch in a similar fashion. The victim in the first case said that he'd given Richards $1,000 to help her out after she came back to his room with him and said she was struggling. He blacked out shortly thereafter and woke up hours later to find his $100,000 watch missing and Richards gone from the room. The case was ongoing when Richards was arrested for the more recent alleged theft. 6. Ethan Hunsaker. During the early morning hours one day in May of 2020, 24-year-old Ethan Hunsaker dialed 911 and admitted to murdering a woman he'd met just hours earlier. Officers arrived at Hunsaker's home in Layton, Utah to find 25-year-old Ashlyn Black dead on the floor with multiple stab wounds. And sadly, she'd also been choked. Hunsaker and Black had gone on a date the prior evening after connecting on Tinder. Then, after having some drinks at a bar, they went back to Hunsaker's apartment together. According to court documents, the two were cuddling when Hunsaker attacked Black without warning or provocation. The suspect told police that the date had gone fine and that he and Black didn't argue at any point throughout the night. Hunsaker's mental health sat at the center of the case from very early on. According to prosecutors, the troubled defendant had fantasized about killing and kidnapping people shortly before he murdered Black. But sadly, it may never be clear why Hunsaker decided to snuff the life out of the kind young woman who was loved by all those who knew her. In 2021, Hunsaker pleaded guilty but mentally ill to first-degree murder, which meant that he'd be committed to a mental hospital for treatment before being transferred to a Utah state prison to begin his sentence of 15 years to life. The judge wasn't required to send Hunsaker to a hospital, but decided to do so after he said that he was having homicidal thoughts. While handing down the ruling, the judge said that he hoped Hunsaker got the help he needed, but that his primary motivation for institutionalizing the young man was his concern for the safety of prison staff members and inmates. One of the prosecutors in the case accused Hunsaker of showing no remorse for his actions, and Black's mother said that she believed Hunsaker targeted her daughter specifically because of her kindness and compassion. 5. Doorbell camera catches cheating husband. In October 2021, a TikToker named Kaylee Christina shared doorbell camera footage of what appeared to be her husband bringing another woman to their residence when she wasn't home. Going by the handle @Kaylee271, Christina included a caption with the video explaining that her husband had claimed he was too sick to join her on a family trip she'd planned. But he seemed to be feeling just fine in the surveillance footage, which showed the man and his mistress exiting the house late at night after spending some time alone together inside. Christina's husband could be seen kissing the woman goodbye and grabbing her behind, leaving absolutely no confusion about the nature of their relationship. In a comment, Christina said that her husband thought the doorbell camera was disabled at the time. Then, a few days after posting the video, she told her followers that all the locks on the home had been changed, and that her soon-to-be ex no longer lived at the residence. The incriminating footage went viral, garnering millions of views over a several-week period. And 2 months after posting the clip, Christina told her followers that she hadn't allowed her estranged husband to move back in. She said that her husband had apologized to her, but that she didn't think she could move past his indiscretion. She now refers to herself as a single mother of 2, and she continues to post videos about her experience with being cheated on and moving on with her life, making it perfectly clear that her marriage is over. 4. Liam Smith. When Liam Smith had a one-night stand with a nail technician named Rachel Fulstow in 2019, he never expected that it would come back to haunt him years later. But little did he know, Fulstow was unhappy about how the encounter went. And she still hadn't let go of her anger when she began dating a man named Michael Hillier the following year. Based on Fulstow's complaints, Hillier became convinced that Smith had assaulted the woman. Nobody will ever know for sure what happened during Smith and Fulstow's one-night stand, or what caused Hillier to believe that Smith needed to die. And Smith will never be able to tell his side of the story either. After being lured outside his home in the English city of Wigan in 2022, Smith was mercilessly gunned down. According to authorities, Hillier and Fulstow planned the murder out well ahead of time and in great detail. After shooting Smith in the head at close range, Hillier dumped acid and soda crystals on the victim's face, causing his flesh to burn off as he died in the street at just 38 years old. Then, just days after Smith's murder, Fulstow and Hillier took a 2-week vacation to Jamaica, carrying on with their lives as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, investigators identified the couple as their prime suspects through surveillance footage, phone records, and internet searches. Authorities finally tracked the couple down and arrested them in early 2023 after a lengthy and exhaustive search. Hillier admitted to manslaughter but denied murdering Smith, while Fulstow pleaded not guilty to both murder and manslaughter, claiming that she knew nothing of the attack until after it happened. During their trial, the court heard enough evidence to reasonably conclude that Smith would likely still be alive if he hadn't crossed paths with Fulstow in the first place. In the words of prosecutor Jason Pitter, Liam Smith's brief interaction with Fulstow was, in a distorted and extreme way, the cause for him being the defendant's target. Before she changed her tune and began to imply that the incident was non-consensual. He admitted that it's impossible to know what happened behind closed doors, but that even in the worst-case scenario, it wouldn't justify the decision to execute Smith in cold blood. Both suspects were found guilty of murder and were sentenced to life in prison. Hillier will serve at least 33 years behind bars before becoming eligible for parole, and Fulstow will remain in prison for a minimum of 30 years. 3. Cadil Newbie. After a night out drinking in Manchester, England in 2017, 23-year-old Cadil Newbie decided to take his secret mistress home with him. But the cheating husband's plans were interrupted by a tragedy during the early morning hours, when he lost control of his car while driving over a bridge at 101 miles per hour. 162.5 kilometers per hour. The vehicle crashed into a guardrail, sending Newbie's mistress, 21-year-old Natasha Gregson, flying out of the back window. Newbie was rushed to the hospital where he died from his injuries, while Gregson survived with a fractured skull and a lacerated liver. A toxicology test revealed that Newbie had 1.5 times the legal limit of alcohol in his system at the time of the crash. His wife, 26-year-old Corette Newbie, learned about the affair after Gregson regained consciousness and told investigators about the circumstances leading up to the accident. Corette then learned even more of the crushing details during an inquest into Newbie's death, when officials revealed that the affair between her husband and Gregson had started just 6 days before the crash. Gregson claimed that when she met Newbie, he told her he'd been separated for several months. She also said that Newbie wasn't wearing his seatbelt and that his driving was out of control on the night of the accident. While the dynamics of the situation left Corette with a complicated emotional journey ahead of her, she was still very much in love with her husband despite his cheating. She said that she hoped people wouldn't judge Newbie based on his behavior during the last week of his life, which she described as out of character and not reflective of who he really was. 2. Luke Lembrick. 29-year-old Luke Lembrick was just looking for some fun when he matched with Lisa Ann Price on Tinder in August 2019. Lembrick brought Price and her friend to his apartment in Sydney, where the three spent the night partying. Then, at some point, Lembrick began flaunting wads of cash totaling tens of thousands of dollars. And the women were quick to notice even more money in the pocket of a blazer that was hanging on his door. Later that night, Lembrick hooked up with Price's friend. But if he was hoping for more casual encounters in the future, he was sorely mistaken. Eager to get their hands on Lembrick's cash, Price and her friends began hatching a plot to break into his home and rob him. During the early morning hours one day in December 2019, roughly 4 months after the Tinder date, 3 of Price's accomplices met outside Lembrick's home and moved forward with their plan. Joseph Nem and Viliami Tofahima climbed into the apartment through a window and quickly came face to face with Lembrick. The confrontation understandably became physical, and one of the suspects stabbed Lembrick in the heart. Lembrick's mother was awakened by the fight and rushed out of her bedroom to find her son collapsed and dying on the floor. The suspects then punched her repeatedly and threw her into a wall several times before fleeing the scene. And likely as an unintended consequence, Lembrick died from his injuries. Price, Nem, Tofahima, and a 4th suspect named Bilal Rahim were all charged with Lembrick's murder. And a 5th suspect, Shireen Risk, was also accused of helping to plot the horrific crime. All 5 defendants pleaded not guilty and were in the middle of their trial when the proceedings were suddenly halted in early 2023. Due to an unexpected legal technicality, the judge decided it was best to scrap the first trial and hold a second trial at a later time. But the case appears to be ongoing, so the outcome remains to be seen. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. 1. Nazar Grinko. Ever since the internet, social media, and smart devices came along, it seems like everything is captured on camera and broadcasted to the world. And while some people have learned from the mistakes of others, many continue to learn the hard way that it's extremely difficult to get away with bad behavior these days. While scrolling through Instagram one day in 2018, a married woman named Yulia Agronovic was shocked to discover photos that another woman had taken in the bedroom that she shared with her husband, Nazar Grinko. Yulia didn't know Vlada Abramovich, but she instantly recognized the scenery in the photo as the view outside of her bedroom window. Then a closer look at Vlada's profile revealed more incriminating pictures. including photos of Yulia's husband. When Yulia confronted Nazar, he allegedly claimed that Vlada was just a friend and that she'd visited the home with a group of people during an innocent social gathering. It was a much different story than the one told by Vlada, though, who openly admitted on social media that she was sleeping with Nazar. She even said that she had no regrets about the tryst, since Nazar acted on his own free will. After realizing that he'd been busted, Nazar admitted to several affairs, but downplayed his actions by claiming that he never mentally cheated on Yulia. Thankfully, though, Yulia knew that she deserved better, so she ended the marriage and thanked her lucky stars that she discovered Nazar's infidelity when she did, especially since the former couple had been planning to start a family together.
9. Rashawn Gaston Anderson. Just 6 days after being bailed out of jail by the Bail Project in 2021, Rashawn Gaston Anderson was back in custody for shooting a Las Vegas waiter during an after-hours robbery. Gaston Anderson, who was later described as a transient who suffered from schizophrenia and had 3 felony convictions under his belt at the time, had been arrested the previous month on a gun charge. The judge overseeing the case released him without bail and warned him to stay out of trouble. Less than a day later, the suspect was arrested for burglary and theft. The Bail Project posted his $3,000 bond, despite what some might describe as an obvious disregard for the law. Restaurant server Chengyan Wang was mopping the floor at his workplace when Anderson entered through a back door and demanded money. The suspect opened fire and shot Wang 11 times, puncturing the victim's lungs, stomach, shoulder, neck, and hands. Wang miraculously survived, but would undergo multiple surgeries and extensive rehabilitation. This time, Gaston Anderson was held without bail. Just months before the shooting, Wang had moved from China to the US to start a new life. Like many others, he questioned why the Bail Project paid Gaston Anderson's bail, given the suspect's extensive criminal history and lack of a permanent address. In the weeks and months following the shooting, the non-profit fell under widespread scrutiny, with many questioning its vetting process, risk assessment protocol, and other factors that are considered in deciding who to help. The Bail Project shut down its Las Vegas chapter shortly after Wang filed a lawsuit. Gaston Anderson pleaded guilty to reduced charges of felony mayhem and attempted robbery, and was sentenced to 7 to 18 years in prison. 8. Michael DeWitt. 17-year-old Madeline Trout was driving along a Kentucky highway one evening in 2021 when she was killed in a head-on crash with a stolen pickup truck. The carjacked vehicle was driving north through Louisville when it drifted into the southbound lanes. Police arrested the driver, 28-year-old Michael DeWitt, on charges of murder, car theft, driving under the influence of a controlled substance, and being a felon in possession of a handgun. He also faces a federal charge of carjacking resulting in death, which could come with the death penalty. DeWitt allegedly had high amounts of methamphetamine and sedatives in his system at the time. Just a week earlier, he'd been bailed out of jail in a separate case with funding from the Bail Project. Madeline's family sued the nonprofit for allegedly failing to thoroughly investigate DeWitt's extensive criminal history and his likelihood to reoffend. The lawsuit also accused the Bail Project of failing to monitor DeWitt after paying to get him released. A judge concluded that the organization has no responsibility to investigate a defendant's suitability for release or to keep an eye on them after covering their bail. Kentucky lawmakers have introduced a bill that would cap charitable bail payments at $5,000 and require nonprofits like the Bail Project to disclose their donors and who they're helping. The proposed legislation is receiving strong support and strong opposition, and whether it will pass into law remains to be seen. 7. Sarah Lilly. 4 families lost their homes in early 2023 when their apartment complex in Springville, New York caught fire and was destroyed beyond repair. The tenants escaped without injury but lost everything they owned, including 2 cats who died in the blaze. One of the tenants, 36-year-old Sarah Lilly, was arrested on suspicion of felony arson. Some locals who claim to be familiar with the situation claim that she started the fire because of a dispute with the landlord. After setting the building ablaze, the suspect allegedly went to a bar and bragged about it. At the time the fire occurred, Lily was facing charges of felony burglary and misdemeanor arson in a separate case. She was accused of stealing from a store she'd been banned from after a previous shoplifting incident. Lily was released while the charges were pending due to New York State's bail reform laws, which strictly limit the court's ability to hold suspects on bail. The arson charge was enough to put her behind bars for the time being, but some community members don't think it should have taken that much to keep her locked up, and they feel let down by the system. Mindy Morelli, who lost her home in the fire, told local station WIVB that the fire could have been prevented. The suspect is well known to law enforcement, according to Erie County Sheriff John Garcia, who said that the department received 63 911 calls about Lily in the 6 months leading up to the fire. If convicted, Lily could face up to 25 years in prison. 6. Richard Klein. 56-year-old Anthony Fuimano was fatally shot outside a home in Fairfield, California in April 2022 during an argument between multiple people. Police arrested 51-year-old Richard Klein on suspicion of being the shooter and for being a felon in possession of a gun. He made bail a few days later. Klein was still awaiting trial 8 months later when he became the prime suspect in the shooting death of a 37-year-old man from Suisun City. Emergency responders found the victim suffering from multiple gunshot wounds and rushed him to the hospital, where he died from his injuries. U.S. Marshals apprehended Klein in Rosarito, Mexico in early 2023 following a multi-agency investigation. He faces a murder charge along with several other counts, including possession of a controlled substance while armed and 2 possession for sale charges. Shortly after his arrest, authorities said that Klein will most likely face additional felonies. If convicted of the first murder, he could face 25 years to life. Detectives told the press that the investigation is ongoing and asked members of the public to come forward with information about the case. 5. Valentine Gomez. One morning in early 2023, someone stole a running vehicle from the driveway of a home in Moses Lake, Washington. The owner told police that he started the car to warm it up, and the next thing he knew, someone took off with it, hitting a fence as they sped away. An officer spotted the Suzuki SX4 and attempted to pull it over, but the driver blew through a red light and fled at more than 70 miles per hour. Because Washington state law prohibits police from engaging in high-speed chases unless a driver is suspected of a DUI or violent crime, the officer declined to pursue the vehicle. A little while later, another cop saw the car flying down a highway at speeds of over 100 miles per hour. It wasn't until a third officer spotted the vehicle parked outside a local residence that law enforcement had an opportunity to take the suspect into custody. According to others who were in the home at the time, 34-year-old Valentine Gomez had entered the residence carrying a backpack and a rifle and had tried hiding under the bed when the police arrived. When an officer asked Gomez if he was a convicted felon and how many felony convictions he had on his record, he reportedly told them he'd lost count and admitted to being out on bail at the time for stealing another car. He had 10 felony convictions on his record and may soon be adding more to the list. Gomez faces charges of auto theft, felony eluding, hit and run, and unlawful possession of a firearm. 4. Gregory G Foil. Just days before Christmas in 2022, 31-year-old Gregory G Foil allegedly shot his wife and a sheriff's deputy in Brookville, Indiana. Deputy Aaron Bowers was wearing body armor at the time and was uninjured. He returned fire, striking G Foil at least once. He was rendered a paraplegic with limited use of one arm and spent a long time in the hospital, according to Franklin County Sheriff Peter Cates. During that time, the people overseeing G Foil's case lost track of the suspect. The day after the shooting, the court issued a warrant for the suspect's arrest for 2 counts of attempted murder, followed by an order for no bail a few days later. A week later, G Foil's defense attorney, Judson McMillan, appeared in court on his behalf. At the time, G Foil was receiving medical treatment while in the custody of the Hamilton County Sheriff in Ohio. He waived his extradition hearing, but was still waiting to be taken back to Indiana 2 days later. McMillan filed for a prompt initial hearing, which is guaranteed under state law, while Sheriff Cates filed paperwork that would house Guilfoyle in a state prison upon his return to Indiana, where staff were better equipped to care for his medical needs than a county jail. Guilfoyle was extradited to an Indiana state prison before the judge had approved the motion and without a bail hearing, and the court wasn't notified of his whereabouts. The suspect didn't appear on the prison's database, and even his own lawyer had no idea where he was. After finally tracking Guilfoyle down, McMillan filed a habeas corpus motion arguing that his client was being falsely imprisoned. Based on the circumstances, the judge had no choice but to free the suspect. McMillan told Fox 19 that he understands why the court wanted to find a facility that could accommodate Guilfoyle's medical needs, but that they went about doing it the wrong way. For now, he remains at home on an ankle bracelet. 3. Riley Dowell. While responding to a reported disturbance one night in early 2023, police encountered anti-law enforcement protesters at Boston Common. One of the demonstrators was allegedly spray painting a monument with anti-police graffiti. According to police, around 20 people surrounded the officers, stopping traffic as they shouted profanities through a megaphone. While trying to get the suspected spray painter under control, one cop was reportedly struck in the face and began bleeding from the nose and mouth. 23-year-old Riley Dowell, the daughter of U.S. Representative Catherine Clark, was accused of hitting the officer while flailing her arms and resisting being taken into custody. According to an arrest report, police found a can of spray paint in her backpack. Dowell was charged with assault and battery on a police officer, vandalizing property, tagging property, vandalizing a historic marker or monument, and resisting arrest. She was released on $500 bail, which seemed to many like a generously low amount considering the nature of the allegations against her. Some speculated that the court went easy on her because of her mother's status as a lawmaker, and questioned the role of favoritism in a system that's supposed to give everyone the same presumption of innocence and the benefit of the doubt. Catherine Clark, who fell under her own share of scrutiny after being arrested during a pro-abortion protest last year, told the public hours after Dowell's arrest that she condemns all violence, including against police. She said she has full trust in the legal system and that the outcome will be fair and equitable. 2. Idris Hai Muhammad. In late 2022, 26-year-old Jeremy Ellis was found dead from multiple gunshot wounds in a running car in downtown Minneapolis. Inside the vehicle, police found several $100s in cash and a gun. A witness told police that she heard multiple gunshots and saw 27-year-old Idris Hai Muhammad, who later turned out to be the car's registered owner, ducking behind a vehicle nearby. She said Hai Muhammad followed her into her apartment building and rode in the elevator with her to her floor. Later that evening, police saw a man matching the suspect's description leave the building. Hai Muhammad allegedly claimed that he was in the middle of a drug transaction when Ellis ordered him out of his car at gunpoint. Once Ellis got into the driver's seat, Hai Muhammad shot him. At the time, the suspect was out on bail in connection with an ongoing homicide case from 2021. He's accused of chasing a man down and shooting him 5 times in the head, execution style. Hai Muhammad came up with the $1 million bail to secure his release, only to be accused of striking again. 1. Travis Lang. One night in 2021, 24-year-old Dylan McGinnis accompanied his friend to a drug deal in Indianapolis. During a disagreement over money, the dealer shot 9 bullets into the victim's car, killing McGinnis and injuring his friend. The alleged shooter, 23-year-old Travis Lang, was out on bond for a separate case at the time of the murder. Earlier that year, he was held on charges of cocaine possession and felony counts of breaking and entering, resisting arrest, and burglary. He bonded out with help from a non-profit called The Bail Project, which covered a portion of his $5,650 bail, while his family came on with the rest. Dylan's mother, Nikki Sterling, was shocked to learn that the Bail Project helps people who are accused of serious felonies. Since her son's death, she's campaigned for the passing of a state bill that would limit how often bail charities can help defendants, ban them from receiving taxpayer dollars, and cap bail payments at $2,000. In late 2021, the Marion County Superior Court withdrew its support for the organization. Sterling, believes it would be appropriate for lawmakers to intervene after what she described as a lack of initiative by the Bail Project to implement changes in who it's willing to help. The nonprofit's director, David Gaspar, called the bill unfair and told local station WTHR that the Bail Project would not consider only covering bail for misdemeanors and low-level felonies. The debate is ongoing.
Would you rather spend an entire night trapped alone in an elevator or in the company of the most annoying person you've ever been on a date with? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.